And we are live. I'll give it a few minutes to let a couple other people join. If anybody would like to join, this is an open chat. I shared the link to the Hangouts in the chat. As you could probably tell from the description, I will be talking about Linux users. Are we in an echo chamber? How much do we really agree on or disagree on? And are we open to other ways of thinking in the tech community, whatever? If I want to make this really divisive and find out if we disagree, all I really have to do is bring up politics, right? Yeah. But we're not going to do that here today. This is a tech show, and I'm going to try to keep um, the discussion on tech. And I think the main disagreement would be like, we'll get into it later. Just gonna give it a few more minutes to see if anybody else would like to join. And if not, that's fine too. I'll just let this record and go up on YouTube. But since this is a show on disagreement, I would love to have someone that maybe feels like their point of view isn't being heard. Is there anybody watching? Anybody in the chat? Don't be afraid to say hello. I'm just waiting, giving it a few minutes so that people can get a chance to either get the notification or join or whatever. I mean, YouTube is weird sometimes. Shooting the link out here. A few spots here, and anyway, I am going to bring up a few things. The question of the day is, do we as Linux users, or do we always agree on everything? Are we in an echo chamber? And I think no. Not for the most part. I mean, I guess kind of. You could say that we are. But I can say that there are many things that the Linux community is divided over. I would say most of us prefer Linux over Windows or Mac OS. However, not all of us have the same hatred for Windows or Mac OS that others in the community tend to display. Hello, William Armstrong. Welcome to the stream. It is an open chat, and this video is I don't know if you saw Toss's stream the other day or Steve's very own stream earlier today, but there's been some complaints, and I won't mention his name, about how we all tend to agree on everything, and we're just in kind of an echo chamber. So I'm kind of discussing that tonight. But just thoughts on the fly. Oh, yay!
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, the link for some odd reason keeps redirecting me to Google Chrome and keeps redirecting me to the Play Store website for some strange reason.
To the what? Oh, hang on.
It keeps redirecting me to the Google Play Store, and it won't open up my Hangouts on my tab. It won't force the Google Hangouts on my Galaxy Tab A to open.
The link I shared in the chat there.
So
The link I shared in the chat did that.
Yes, it redirects me to my Chrome browser on my tablet, and then it drops me to the Google Play Store site, and then it won't open won't make the Hangouts on my on my Android tablet open. I'm running a Samsung Galaxy Tab A with Android 5.1 with Hangouts in it, and it will not force it open. It just does Chrome only for some weird reason.
Oh, well, that might be an issue with Android or something. But I followed it on my desktop. It took me right to the Hangout, right to the call.
Well, on that note, I've done it with when I had it through when I had TotalOS Today, or Steve sent me a link through Gmail. It automatically sent me directly to the Hangouts to my Android tablet. It automatically opened Hangouts when I touch the link on my tablet.
Well, it could be that I shared the wrong link. I shared what was in the top bar here on the Hangouts, but I am fairly new to this. Like I never had
I know
an
how to
issue
use Hangouts pretty
in
well.
the past. Yeah. So, as you probably guessed, the topic for tonight is do Linux users always agree on everything? Because I don't know if you saw Toss's stream the other night or Steve's stream today, but there was a certain individual in the chat that took up an issue that Linux users always agree on everything. He feels that we're in an echo chamber, and I'm kind of bringing that up, trying to get people's thoughts on that. I think we're not, and I'll go into detail as to why I think we're not in a few minutes. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
My thought is I don't really, well, most things Linux users usually agree on is what's good or what's not, but I've had some issues in regards to the Linux community where some people don't either disagree on certain distros or what's better than the other, or what packaging types it uses, like Debian versus Arch, Gentoo, like different disagreements with one or the other. Things like that.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, and I'll get into that as well, because the reason I think that we're not in an echo chamber is because, and I opened up a few home pages here for different distributions, and the reason that I did that is because if you look at a lot of their statements, a lot of their philosophies are very different from one another, and a lot of their purposes are very different from each one another, and their targeted audience, I think, is a lot different than one another. And if you go into the Linux communities, like you just said, there are people on there who are divided over which package manager is the best, over which piece of software is the best. Like, do I use OpenShot or Kdenlive? Which one's the best? Do I prefer stability of Debian or the bleeding edge of Arch? There are plenty of disagreements to be had in the Linux community, And I mean, there are some who still run Windows and complement Windows on that it just works, and there are some of us that won't even use it because of the EULA. I mean, we have disagreements on that.
Well, I use a little bit of both just to make it clear here. I use Windows because I have PC games that are proprietary, such as The Sims and other programs that cannot be used in Linux due to proprietary lockouts with some
Hmm.
proprietary stuff in it it's not open sourced. I can use Steam in it or GOG.com in Linux because GOG.com is a game company by CD Projekt Red that runs on Linux, Mac, and Windows. But
Hmm.
Steam is also available for all three. But Origin, which is by Electronic Arts has their digital distribution store called Origin, which is they sell PC games on it. That doesn't work in Linux at all because it's proprietary and it uses proprietary software, including DRM that's not open source.
Hmm. Yeah, so see, we have a see, so you're running Windows because you have a purpose for it, and there are some in the community that would say, you know, give up your games or whatever. They're not me, but there are some people who would, and so I'm just pointing that out that like we have like the Linux community is very, very like diverse in its thought, and I think the last thing that the Linux community is an echo chamber because.
Well, I just wanted to point out quickly that the okay. Can I get rid of my digital PC games? The answer is no, I cannot because they're tied to my online accounts. I can't delete them permanently. If I did, I'm just wasting money on games I purchased I want to play, and me deleting them is a bad idea.
Yeah, and I mean my thing too is that you have people who are on like different ends of the open source spectrum, right? Like, there are people who like they're okay with running some proprietary software, and you have people that they want to go full Stallman. Like, I'm just gonna run all proprietary, so I'm gonna run all open source software. It's gonna all be FOSS, and anybody who runs proprietary software, they're just like unclean, right? But like I can respect those people, right? Like Fedora takes a more open source approach, and I can respect that. I can respect their philosophy. Arch tries to keep it simple. Solus is their philosophy is we're going to make it the most perfect streamlined distribution that we possibly can, and we're going to focus on stability. Linux Mint has a similar philosophy. We're going to make it stable and usable, and Debian focuses on stability. They all have the different focus, and they all have different um priorities than the other ones. And then you got the full on Gentoo users, the ones that you got to compile everything from source, and it's just like we have a diverse community, and we don't agree on everything. Matter of fact, there are things that the community vehemently disagrees on with certain things.
That computer I've got, I use it with Windows on there, but I have a virtual machine with Debian installed into it right there. But I've got a game console that requires a Windows PC to stream media to an Xbox 360 up there, and behind me or in front of me, which you can't see, but I'll have to turn the camera around really quickly. It's actually PS3 that can connect to my Windows machine,
Hmm.
but I'm unable to um, use it on a Linux machine because it requires Windows PC to stream media. As PS3s do have open source software slightly in them, but there's still proprietary software because Sony uses FreeBSD, but they modify it to include their proprietary stuff on top of it.
Hmm.
So some open source products are used by companies for proprietary use, like Sony uses FreeBSD for their consoles. I think Nintendo has used FreeBSD for their Switch operating system. Um, that's pretty much some companies use open source stuff to make their consoles run proprietary stuff on top of the open source stuff. A little bit of both.
Hmm.
That's why Sony allowed you to do Linux on a PS2 and Linux on a PS3, but Sony got sued for deleting Linux off of PS3. You could actually use your PS3 as the Linux machine, but that was later removed.
Yeah, I mean, and like those are licenses to run games on any other platform that you paid for. You're not going to give those up. I mean, you bought them, you paid for them, you put money into them, and you know you're not going to give them up. And I mean, it's just one of those. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go in and someone's website, each one distributions, each one of their philosophy. Whoa.
Who's in chat?
Boy. Uh, well, hang on. Um,
Welcome to Benjamin's live Google Hangout show.
my Kate, am I live? Okay.
You are still, but the audio was cutting in and out briefly for a moment.
Oh. Yeah, it looks like my cable got disconnected for a second there.
What cable is plugged into it?
My Ethernet cable. It got.
Looks like my cable got disconnected for a second.
Okay. All right. So it seems to be working just fine now.
And even I have disagreements with Switch to Linux slightly.
Yeah, I mean, I have some disagreements with him too. I mean, like, it's like, but the disagreements that I have with him aren't like, crazy, like out there, like, like I prefer Arch over Mint. I have my reasons for that. They're good reasons. He prefers Mint over Arch. He has his reasons, and they're good reasons too. And so, like, I think it at the end of the day, some of it all depends on what you're purposing your device for. Like for me, the reason I choose Arch is because of the centralization of the software. And back when I chose it, it was in my opinion, Pac-Man, the Arch repos and the Arch user repository. It was the only distribution that wasn't giving me um, dependency hell. And while installing Arch was a big hurdle, right, like learning how to do the command line install, I started to realize as I went along that certain things were easier to do in Arch, like once you get it set up. And so that's why I said, I'm going to get over this hurdle. I'm going to learn how to install it, and then I'm gonna make it work. But not everyone has the time to do that, and I understand that. And some people just need something that's stable. Or like Arch gets updated, like for me, it's like twice a day I run an update, and every update is a gamble. Matter of fact, Arch even pushes kernel updates. Like once the latest kernel is out, it gets pushed through a regular update in Arch repos, and that could pose a problem for someone that needs a stable distro to just sit on a machine, like an airport terminal or something, and just work. Right? You're not going to put Arch onto something like that. And so I mean, there's a time and a place for everything, and we can have our disagreements over which is the best. Like, but, I mean, there's no overall best, and it's just one of those things where it's like I just don't think I just don't think that we're in an echo chamber. I don't. I mean, like we're not anti Windows. We just prefer Linux over it. And we have some issues with Windows, the data collection, the telemetry, and all that. And some people don't mind it. They just want it to work. And others of us won't even touch it because of the EULA. And I mean, we have that disagreement.
I mean, I've noticed that most users don't really like the use of Windows due to a user agreement. I just agree to the agreement anyway in order for me to use it. If I click decline, it won't let me continue. I had to hit agree
Right.
anyway to get through it.
Yeah.
And do I tamper with the settings of customization like feedback or sending information back to Microsoft? I don't mess with them because I just want to get straight to Windows and use it. But most people are concerned about privacy, so they would turn those settings off. But that's just taking it a little too far.
Well, I would say that like I would say to the people that think that we live in an echo chamber, we don't. We're just a community that has learned how to agree to disagree and come together. And I honestly believe that. I mean, because like you got those of us that like I would never bash anybody for not running Arch. No matter how superior Arch is to other distributions. Kidding. I'm kidding. I would never bash anybody for running something different. Because we all have our own purposes and we all come together over the umbrella of we all run Linux. We're all under that umbrella, and I think that we've heard the arguments from Windows users, right, as to why Windows can be better. I mean, there's some certain proprietary software that won't run on anything else but Windows. Um, I would say that yeah, I mean Windows can I would argue can be more stable than Linux at times, depending on your definition of stable. But I would say too that like most of our channels, including my own, which isn't that as big as others, but we've always welcomed Windows users and Mac users into the chat, into the discussion. We've never denied them, and we've always they've always been welcome to join in the video chats and the open chats. It doesn't matter what they use.
Oh, that noise I made, Ben, was a dog coming in my room. I'm watching some dogs, so you'll hear me make those noises at the dogs.
That's okay. Use. I've got a cat. He only shows up when I got food at the desk though. But no, like I mean, there's there's always been a seat at the table for anybody, and I mean, I think particularly Total OS Toss he's made it clear in the open chats. He says if you still run Windows, that's okay. Right? He says that multiple times, and so no, nobody's denying another point of view, and nobody's like shutting one point of view out. I mean, like for example, today I normally I run the i3 window manager. I got into this a few months ago, and I got into it as like a side project to try to figure out how to use it, and man, I was hooked. I loved it because it was stable, it was simple. But today I started feeling bored because I got this
Well,
window.
I just wanted to, sorry to interrupt there. I just wanted to, it's not that I don't have problems with people in the Linux community. I don't. It's just Switch to Linux is more privacy focused than I am. He's more privacy and trying to prevent spying or data collection. That's what he's more focusing at. So his audience would target those who want to stay anonymous and private. But again, I have some concerns with VPNs in the way that certain products won't work behind a VPN very well. For example, Amazon and Netflix can tell when you're behind a VPN or a proxy, and they will stop you from watching their content, videos and stuff until you turn off your proxy or VPN. They will stop you from doing so.
William,
Hmm?
you're cutting in and out there. I don't know if you saw
Can
that.
you still hear me?
Hopefully that's not me. I'm not downloading
Not
anything.
me either. My phone is on, I'm having it on my cellular connection so I can see chat because since I'm using Google Hangouts in the Chrome web browser on my tablet through a desktop setting on the browser on my tablet, I'm not able to see who's in chat without disrupting the Hangout.
Oh, well, it doesn't seem to be that many people in chat right now. There's 3 people
There's
watching.
30 people joining.
Well, that's all right. If anybody's out, what, 4 now. Well, is anybody out there who wants to say hi in the chat? Um, this is an open chat. I put the link in the chat.
You put
Um,
the wrong link though, that's what I've noticed. Oops.
uh, uh,
You gotta find it. Can you show to read to me what's on the screen there, Ben?
which screen?
Your screen with the Hangouts because you shared a link to install the Google Hangouts on Google Play, not the one that invite lets people join in. Because Total West today sends a link that you interact that brings you straight to Hangouts on Android directly through what Gmail or any other like Gmail or something like that. When I did it, it was through Gmail and it sent me straight to Hangouts.
Yeah, because when I clicked this link, it took me right to the Hangout call.
Well, I'm on my Android tablet, and it necessarily didn't send me straight to my Google Hangouts. That it did when I did it with Steve's very own and Total West Today. It sent me to theirs, but it didn't redirect me to. For yours, it redirected me straight to the website of Google Play. I don't know how that was possible, but it should have said, "Hey, this is a Hangouts link. Open Hangouts on my Android tablet," but it didn't do that.
Hmm. Because I've always sent out the same link. I've always sent out the same one to Ricky too. I've done live chats with Ricky, and he's never had an issue with them. And I've always sent out the same link. So I mean not the same exact
Listen,
link, but you get it. I got it from the same spot. Hey Steve, how you doing? Um,
hey, Steve.
yeah. I'm bringing up the. I was bringing up the topic the other. I was brought up in a chat earlier today of whether or not we live in an echo chamber, and open it up to a live chat, open chat, because I would like for people who have different viewpoints to be able to join, and and we'll see if it is an echo chamber or not.
I mean, YouTubers like switch to Linux. Okay, I don't have an issue with Switch too much. It's just it's a little hard for me to talk with Switch because he's all about privacy. I'm not about that. It's a little hard for me to have a discussion with him when I don't. It just I don't. My personally, I don't feel like myself. I don't get very far with that.
Well, I mean, for me, it's like I can appreciate where people, but like that right there, that's good because because it proves that we're not really in an echo chamber, right? Because like some of us are very privacy centered, and others of us the thing like to be entertained or to be able to do this or that. And while I think privacy is important, I think other things can be as well. Like for me, like I know, like I would love to be able to adhere to Stallman's philosophy. I would love to be able to do that. However,
Yes, I'm monitoring chat. Sorry to interrupt. Before you continue, I'm monitoring chat, and I can see people. I can see Steve there, so I'm able to respond to chat on my
yeah,
phone and still use Hangouts on my tablet.
yeah. Hello, Steve. Um,
It's great to see you pop in, Steve. It'd be interesting if a lot of people pop in, including Total S&D and Switch. Uh-oh.
I mean, like there's some people who they try their hardest to adhere to Stallman's philosophy. And
I just think Richard Stallman's a little out of his mind.
ah, crap. Here, screw it. Okay. Uh, how about now? Uh,
It's working fine.
okay. I just ditched the cable. Go on Wi-Fi. Seems like that one's the issue. It keeps coming loose. So and
You have
that's
a
supposed to
faulty
be
cable then.
the stable connection. So I mean, who knows? Who knows? This world is nuts
Cable
sometimes.
faults can occur.
But here, where was I? Yeah, I should probably get a newer cable, maybe a shorter one. I don't know what I need a 100-foot cable for me now when the modem's like right next to me. But
Why couldn't you just use a power line adapter? That you just it's like it sends electric data internet connections over a power line.
hmm, I might look into that. But I mean, I'm
All it
fine.
is basically hold on. The long story short, it's just basically you're putting an Ethernet jack and an electrical outlet. You plug it into the wall, plug in one Ethernet cable on one end to the box or the outlets nearby your computer, then plug the other end nearby the router or into a modem.
Hmm,
Then you plug an Ethernet cable from that to the modem or router on the other end, whatever room you want to put it in, and you got a connection to the net through an electrical line.
hmm, it's not a bad deal. I do have
Yeah,
to
or a
invest.
Wi-Fi extender.
I do have to invest in repeaters because this one's down in the basement and I got it just fine down here, but upstairs the signal's kind of weak. So I do gotta invest in some repeaters or maybe a stronger router or something. But anyway, back on the topic here on Linux and an echo chamber. I mean, like I was saying before, I mean there's some people who try to fulfill Stallman's philosophy to the T, and I respect those people, and I would love to be able to adhere to that. My disagreement comes in with them in that my laptop right now, this ThinkPad W530 right now, which is a beast of a machine for what I paid. Um, it has an NVIDIA Quadro in it, and so I have a choice to make here. Do I install the proprietary NVIDIA drivers and have a fully functioning computer that can make use of every component in it, or do I put the Nuvo drivers in it, the open source NVIDIA drivers, or do I just disable the graphics card altogether to fulfill Richard Stallman's philosophy? Now, this is where the disagreement comes in that I would rather have the fully functioning computer. And if that means installing a proprietary driver on it to get it to that spot, that's what I'm going to do. And I mean, that goes for Broadcom chipsets too. Right? There's no open source driver for those. So I have a choice between either do I not use Wi Fi or do I install it and have a fully functional computer? I mean, there's a disagreement there, right? I mean, maybe not with you, but with certain people in the community. Yes, there are people who would say disable the Wi-Fi card.
Well, then here's a bit of a trade-off. If you do that, then you're going to get a consequence. You're not able to use certain hardware components. You're just going to run into a complete trade-off. I have a printer that's an HP printer that works. It works with Linux, but it's a network printer. It can print either through the local network or online through an email address. The printer has a unique address. I just send it a document through its unique email address and it prints it, or just print it from a computer over the network on my home network and find. Sorry about that. My tablet's dropping Wi-Fi every few seconds.
Hmm. Ah.
It's not like it's going to happen no more than like every few minutes or so. It just does it weirdly. I don't know why it's doing it.
Well, believe me, I know the pain with this loose cable. And I'm the
If I
one
was
with the
using my
stream.
phone, it would work.
Yeah. Yeah, I just decided to unhook the cable and go with the Wi-Fi route because that. At least, I mean, the Wi-Fi could drop, but at least the cable's not coming loose. I mean, you can't loosen a Wi-Fi connector or Wi-Fi connection unless you stick a microwave between me and the modem. But
Bad
no, no,
idea.
no one seems to be trying that here, so we're good.
Let me just, I'm trying to put my battery bank in my little bag here.
But I mean,
So I don't lose it.
it's like we all have disagreements too on or various opinions on how Linux should be run. On and it's one of those things where it's like what's more important to a person? Do we need everything to be open source, or do I need a fully functioning computer? And for me to go fully open source, I would have to do a ton of research on the particular system that I'm buying. I would have to do like make sure that every single component in there is compatible with a free and open source driver. And I would have to make sure that this machine is powerful enough to get done with what I need done. And that can be pretty pricey in itself, and that can be hard to do because sometimes when you're looking for a computer online, it doesn't give you every single spec on it. It might tell you what's in it or like what it's supposed to have, but it's not going to tell you the exact Wi-Fi card that's in it. It's not going to tell you what exactly is in it. So like a lot of that stuff is a gamble sometimes. And if I buy a computer and it happens to have a Broadcom chipset in it, or if somebody gives me a computer with a Broadcom chipset in it and they say, well, I want to run Linux on this machine, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to say, okay, I can put Linux on this machine, but I'm going to disable your Wi-Fi card. Here, you can't get on Wi-Fi with your laptop anymore because hey, I'm not going to put a proprietary driver on it. And it's like there's some people in the community that would strangle me over that. Like, what are you doing using proprietary software? It's like, I mean, echo chamber? I don't think so. I mean,
I see.
no, it's 9:35 now. I'm probably gonna end this at 10 at the latest because it doesn't seem like there are too many people jumping on here. But yeah, I mean, I hope that people get something out of this. I mean, it's just, and I hope the person that was worrying or mentioning that we're all in an echo chamber sees this and maybe comments under it, or like I'm not gonna mention his name because like I don't know if he would want that, but um yeah. I mean, I told him in Steve's chat that I'd be doing a stream like this, bringing it up. And just like, I mean, I'm not really going into too much detail on this. Like, I do like very limited research on this, but like, I'm just like bringing up my thoughts here. It's like, there are people in the Arch community who, they're elitist, they're elitist, you know what's. Hey, Switched, how you doing? Um,
Ooh,
the link is in the chat if you'd like to join.
there goes Switch. Okay, then. Hello, Switch.
Um, John, hey John, how you doing? By the way, yeah, he was saying that we're all in an echo chamber, and that there's very little to no disagreement with the people on the panels, like in the open chats. Um, he said it once on Toss's stream, and he said it in Steve's stream, and he feels like there's not enough disagreement. I guess there's not enough disagreement among the people who chat in the Hangouts, and I tried to mention to him that like there's many disagreements among the people in the on the panels. Um, there's disagreements among distributions. There's disagreements among different philosophies. There's disagreements among whether we should run proprietary drivers or disable those components in our laptops. I mean, there's many disagreements to be had within the Linux community, and I mean, I just don't feel like we're in the echo chamber that he says that we're in. And I mean, I've never once heard, you know, switch to Linux or Toss or Steve or anybody say, "Oh, you run Windows, you can't join in the chat." Like I've never, or you run proprietary software, you can't join in the chat. Like I've never once, heard that. I never once heard them say, "Oh, you have a different opinion, you can't join in the chat." But like on a certain level too, it's like these channels are tech based. They're tech channels. They're um, a lot of it is talking about Linux. I mean, I'm not going to start a these channels are tech. Oh,
Greetings.
hello. Was that Tom?
Yes, yes. My camera's down for the night, so
Uh,
jumping on with nothingness.
yeah. I don't know if you saw who I'm talking about in the other chats, but there was someone who was saying that there's no disagreements among the people who do these open chats, and I just had to bring that up. That like, are we really in like an echo chamber here in the Linux community, or is
Hey, I'm like a duck in an echo chamber. I just don't echo. There's possibly some degree of element that may be right, but not necessarily exclusively, There's some people that jump on that everyone else agrees with them just because they've jumped on, and that's a bad thing. Um, I mean, I disagree with Toss on a number of things. That's okay. That's fine. I don't think Ubuntu is a good candidate for a national Linux desktop. And there's, I certainly don't like Mate. I certainly, little things like that, we can all disagree all we want, and there's too much disagreement in the Linux community, I think, more than anything, but
yeah. I mean, I'm not going to bring up the guy's name. I mean, I'm sure that you guys can look at like the other streams and like see who it was in the was it that they record the chat, right? Some of these streams.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I salute Switch to Linux for focusing on privacy. It just switched to Linux, in my opinion. His videos are not are not type for me, or not my type of audience for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
just being honest.
And I mean, see, but like I guess you can make the argument that we all agree that there's disagreement in the Linux community. So I mean, that's just an echo chamber right there.
Well, that in and of itself is the reality, because if there was so much agreement in the Linux community, then we would have one solid system like a Windows or a Mac. We would have Windows OS, Mac OS, and Linux OS, and there would only be one Linux and one desktop environment and one build and one package manager, and that's not what we want.
Exactly. I mean, the
James says he like to join.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I was saying before too. I mean, like if you look at if you go to each distribution's homepage and look at their philosophies, those are very different too. Like you got distributions like Fedora that try to keep everything open source and free software, and you got other distributions like Mint that try to keep everything stable, and other distributions like Arch that try to keep it simple, stupid. Like their philosophies are different, and if we all agreed on everything, there wouldn't be so many distros out there.
Yeah. And sometimes we might have too many distros. I mean, I might agree to that, but at the same token, you know, I'd rather have too many distros than not enough.
Yeah. I mean, I make the argument that you know, au contraire, like we're not in an echo chamber, we're just a community that for the most part learned how to agree to disagree. And I say for the most part because some of these forums, you know, people are just like elitist, like my way is the only way. But this community, for example, like among like the YouTubers here, it's like we all have our different preferences on which distribution we run and why, and it's like, I mean, we have our disagreements on what we stress and what we find more important than other things. And I made it an open chat specifically to let people who, specifically to let people who disagree come on and discuss those disagreements. Like, as far as I know, nobody on any of these channels has denied somebody a seat at the table based on what operating system they run.
Yeah, I don't think anybody has. Hey, in my case, I just don't run a lot of open chats.
Yeah.
Well, I just actually sent the other Ben a link to your video, and I told him go to chat to get to the thing to get in.
Hey, guys.
Hey,
For me? Yes.
how you doing?
Yes, mine for to join in my live chats. Yes, you need to send an email to the contact form on my system, because I don't. I mean, well, you can find my email if you know where to look. I'm not broadcasting it.
Well, I mean, me sharing the link to the Hangout chat is like very, very rare for me to do that in the chat. I just did that for this particular one due to the topic that we're talking about. By the way, how you doing, other Ben?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. We're talking about.
Go ahead.
We're talking about disagreements today.
Disagreements on what?
Anything.
Well, I have. I've been. I'm not really one to normally discuss that, but I'm currently working on. I'm gonna just give some updates here at the moment. So, I've been working on Pac-Man Linux for a little while, and it's going okay. So I don't know if any of you guys have heard of that. Tom, I don't know if you have, or Benjamin, if you have, but Pac-Man Linux is pretty much something Matthew Moore and I started like months ago, and it's essentially designed. It's based around Arch Linux, stock Arch Linux, for that matter, and it's designed to make Arch installing simply as can be, and it's designed to take all the nutty wiki work out of it and put the user with some basic apps, XFCE desktop, custom theming, etc. Just give them an out-of-the-box experience that they can use and try and build from.
Nice.
On that note, I did want to at most say that one thing I disagree with is OpenSUSE, how they shut down the SUSE Studio website where you can custom build your own OpenSUSE distro. They shut that down, so I can no longer create my own custom Linux.
That's a real shame. I really like that website. I never got anything out of that the way I wanted it to, so yeah, that was kind of a shame.
Well, but
I managed to create my own distro based off of Knoppix that was designed to run from a live DVD, but never installs anything. You just run it from the DVD.
Yeah. Like, that kind of, to me, is a good thing because, I kind of like the fact that you can build your own SUSE kind of thing. I like that.
See,
I
didn't know
will
they shut that
release
down.
it online, but it's made out of an outdated version of OpenSUSE, but it never installs anything for security reasons.
Well, but you
Yeah,
know what I
hear you,
noticed
man.
though is that the last time I tried to open, the last time I installed OpenSUSE, it gave me a lot of different options in the installation process. So I mean, maybe that's why they shut it down because you could make it whatever you want while you're installing it now.
They were merging it. I read on their site of the shutdown that they were going to merge with OpenSUSE OBS, Open Build Studio, or OBS or something.
Hmm.
It's called
Yeah,
a
that would be.
Open Build Service or something.
I'm not too sure.
If you
But
search OpenSUSE Studio, it'll explain why it was merged. Their blog revealed it.
mhm.
Well,
Now,
John.
one thing that's always bugged me and something I always disagreed with about Gentoo is the fact that they never, in any of their live DVDs after 2008, I believe, they stopped including a snapshot installer of like the most recent things that they had going. I always found that unfair because, I know the point of Gentoo is that you build it how you want it, but my my problem with that is that say like somebody's got sort of a Linux experience and they want to try Gentoo out and they don't really want to do Calculate or Sabayon or something like that. They want sort of an out of the box experience, but they want it kind of pre-set up, etc. And they don't want to go down the Arch road, but they want to go down some sort of more customizable road, but they want, not Slon2 or whatever. They can take a pre-built snapshot and just do it how they want it from there. You know what I'm saying? Because I think that would make a lot more sense. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Your all's thoughts on that? But
I tried Gentoo and I liked it somehow.
but
Well,
but yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? I think that if Gentoo gave us like a pre-built DVD, like they sometimes do throughout the years, and included a one-click installer that you can just go next, 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 kind of like Ubuntu does. That wasn't Calculate or Slon2 or Sabayon, something like that, or a Red, or what is that one called, or whatever, and it was official Gentoo, but it had like a simple click by click thing. Because even I would like that because it takes hours to build freaking Gentoo. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, that's why I kind of gave up on my whole Gentoo project.
No, I know, Benjamin, and you
Not
think
worth it if there's too many
no,
other
you're right, Tom,
installers
because
for it.
yeah, there's so much involved in a Gentoo install, and plus to build the freaking kernel, and it's not deployable, and it makes so much effort into it that it is kind of disagreeable to even have to do it.
Yeah, I do prefer the Arch kernel in the sense that like I don't have to recompile it every time I put a new piece of hardware in it.
Yeah, it kind of kills the purpose of even wanting to do it.
Yeah, the portability of Linux is very important.
Yes, it is. But yeah, that's one thing that we can all kind of agree to disagree on.
Well, I
Well,
will
on
say.
that note, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I wanted to quickly chime in that I'm still waiting for Debian 10 to come out, but it's still not yet finished. It's still stuck in testing.
Yes, it is. And I can see why, because a lot of things that are in SID that are not there's a lot of things in testing that I guess are not finished being tested yet.
I mean, I'm glad you guys jumped on because the whole point of the stream was to prove that we're not, in fact, in an echo chamber and that we do have differing opinions and, we're not. How you say, like, I don't know, like this guy's criticism was that we're all in an echo chamber. We all have the same opinions on everything, and I just didn't agree with that. I'm like, you haven't met the Linux community if you think that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you're going to find some small degree of that on anybody on anything because, you know, duh, that's what brings a community together. We don't have a community that's based exclusively on all of us like completely different things. I mean, that would actually be an interesting project. And actually you'd probably learn a lot. You know, you'd have your one guy does, you know, this, and one guy does that, and one guy does that, but that doesn't really produce a long-term community as much because a relationship has to have something at the center and the core of it. We've just developed our community around the love of open source software. And
the only community whoops.
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt, but the only community I remember is the OzGUI Tech Show Linux community that was in like 2011 or 2010 that had Tim Mullins as the OzGUI Tech Show host, and he did his own forum and website for Linux stuff. But that community imploded after a problem occurred. It completely collapsed and imploded.
Well, John asked in the chat, he says, why not engage more with Windows and Mac users on the streams? And I mean,
they just don't always come to a channel that's all about Linux. And honestly, that's why half of my videos are not about Linux, because I probably have more people viewing my things from a Windows and a Mac platform because I focus on things other than Linux.
Whose voice is that?
Mine is switched to Linux.
Oh, okay. I forgot about that. Oops, sorry.
Yeah.
I usually have my camera on, but I'm kind of half working right now, so.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't realize it was going to be you.
Yep.
Well, I opened up the chat to whoever wanted to join.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I admit the switch to Linux focuses on privacy. Yes, I do want to be private in some things in operating systems, but not too private. Partially.
What do you mean by not too private?
I don't really have an issue with Windows learning when I'm searching, or I don't mind if it gathers information on me. I'd rather it know what I'm doing and be like, hey, this is what you'd like to search, so we're gonna give you a recommendation. I let Google build information on me, what I Google up, and it knows what I'm looking for and gives related topics.
Yeah. There's places that I say that, hey, that's probably an okay thing. It's just there's the fact that you can't turn it off and it collects absolutely everything. All I'm concerned with is, do people understand the depth of what it does? I don't necessarily want to tell somebody you can't use Windows. I just want people to understand what it does when they do.
Oh, and on that note, I do tend to ignore the inlet user license agreement because it's so long, but I am aware of the things it does, and I don't have a problem on me.
A lot of people typically ignore that, William. That's not uncommon.
And that's kind of part of the problem, honestly.
I mean, who's
a lot of
sit
people. It's not unheard of that a lot of people disregard the the license terms when installing an operating system or any kind of software.
It's like I said, switch to Linux. I have no ill intentions of speaking bad about you. I know you're focused on privacy. I'm partially focused on privacy about that much, but I'm not bashing you. I just really have no disagreements about privacy, but I'm not so. I want to have some little information gathered on me, but not where to completely. I'm like an invisible stranger.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's your choice, and as long as you are aware of the pros and the cons, then that's fine. But let's look at this the issue with Facebook, what they did with their project, and of course there's a bill in Congress right now looking at updating the COPA laws to say between 13 and 15-year-olds, you can only collect data on those kids if they consent. Do they actually understand what is going on? Do they understand the ramifications of installing a root access application on their phone that will see absolutely everything they're doing, including the contents of their text messages, every photo on their phone, everything they look at, everywhere they go, every place? Do they understand the ramifications of that? And I don't think a lot of people do, and that's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
On that
note, I mean, I mean, I can understand where the concern is with that. Like, I mean, I wouldn't want someone jumping on my phone remotely and just remotely installing a root app just to collect privacy information like that. That's silly.
Yeah, and of
Speaking
course
on that
they
note,
didn't do that, but it was very similar to it. They simply said, "Oh, do you consent?" And they're like, "Of course I consent. You're going to send me $20 out of the deal. Sure, they'll consent, dude. You can get it. You can get a teenager to do a lot of things for pizza."
Yeah, I mean, heck, I wouldn't want somebody just randomly sending me a push notification or whatever saying, "Do I consent to such and such?" That would be just weird.
Yeah.
on that note, I wanted to point out some things. I've tried a VPN, I've tried that. It turns out that I can use a WinScribe VPN to hide my anonymity, but there's two problems. One problem, though, I'm unable to use it with streaming services like Netflix and Amazon Instant Video because it detects I'm behind one and it'll say, "Hey, you need to turn off your proxy or VPN in order to see our content," so I turn it off. On that note, since you mentioned security and privacy switch, VNC server connections are insecure. I had an incident where someone was browsing my computer through VNC inadvertently. I saw the mouse cursor move and I wasn't touching the computer, so I shut the router off and I uninstalled the VNC program and I changed all my account passwords on my computer and I'm fine.
Well, John, yeah, I kind of agree. John in the chat, he says, would like to see in-depth discussions between Windows, Mac, Linux power users, like engaging in like debates, and like I agree with that. That would be very interesting. But the question I think is, how do we set that up? How do we reach out to people who would actually engage in that and sit down for these things? We've never denied them a seat at the table, right? We never denied them, their voice. The question is, are they willing to engage?
I'm willing to engage. Sorry.
Go ahead, William.
I didn't mean to cut anyone off. It's like the community would switch to Linux, Total Western, and everyone else. I don't dislike anyone in the community. It's just my views and opinions do express William Armstrong me, but however, I often do what works for me. Now, if I wanted to go anonymous and use Tor and VPN, fine. But some products I use require a direct connection to a server, not hide behind a proxy where it can't see who's logging in from where. Because if I do that, it'll say that we can't see from your actual country, so it's just going to cause errors.
Yeah, and that's there's certainly a lot in there, and that is why like myself, and if you watch some of TechLore's stuff as well. The fact is that we're not saying to constantly be connected to that. I don't use a VPN personally around my office for most things, and the only device I have that's perpetually connected to Tor is only 2 of the browsers on my smartphone. Because for that very reason, you don't want to be connecting to a direct service like Google or like Facebook or a Microsoft account through Tor because it de-anonymizes you. You don't want to be doing that.
Well, here's a secret. Facebook allows you to use Tor through Tor, but there's just one slight problem. You have to create a new Facebook account because when I tried my existing account, I got locked out of it because it was seeing that I was not from the location I'm logging in from, and it was saying your account's locked because it had trouble trying to verify who I am.
Yeah. Were you on Facebook on Tor, or were you on Facebook's Onion site?
I was on the Facebook's Onion site, and I still tried to use my existing account, and it still wouldn't let me in with my existing one, so I had to recreate a new one.
Not sure if that's linked to the regular Facebook or not. I just don't know because I don't know enough about it.
Here's the thing, Tom. Facebook, it's official. The Facebook Onion link's official directly by them.
I know it is. I just don't know if the Onion link is connected to the non-Onion link for Facebook.
I have no way of verifying it. I tried Tor and I'd like it, but I have no way of verifying if it's either doing what it says it's doing. I just question Tor. I know it's been used for bad things, but it can be used for good. But some sites may have a problem with you accessing it through them. Or internet service providers may have a problem with that too.
Yeah, John, I agree. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be knowledgeable enough to really get into an in-depth um, debate, if you will, as to all the ins and outs of everything. Um, I'd be happy to express my views on it, but as far as
Again, oh,
yeah, as far as an actual debate goes, I think like an experienced Windows user would, absolutely crush me no matter what, right or wrong.
well, the only thing I'm glad would switch to Linux is he's not criticizing me over my decisions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
I wouldn't. All I want is for people to understand the ramifications of what they're doing. Once you understand the ramifications of what you're doing, hey, you go make your own choice.
I mean,
That's the thing.
I mean that's the thing, William, is we're not. It's not that we agree on everything that we talk about. It's that we learn to agree to disagree. We don't try to. I mean, like if people, um, I mean, like if it sounds like like this guy thinks that like okay, we're not beating each other over the head with our views, so we must agree on everything. Like I mean, that's kind of the vibe that I get.
Yeah,
Because,
and
like I said, oh, whoops,
no, go ahead. That's fine. Go ahead.
I'm not trying to cut people off. It's just what I've learned about Switch to Linux of you, of course, is you're more privacy based. So it wouldn't. So your videos might not be much use to me because of how the way you explain privacy well and the ramifications, but it may not work for me very well at times because I use proprietary products that do require direct connections or some information in order to work. Not giving that information results in it being invalid or unusable. Like, for example, my printer is an HP printer that requires an internet connection for internet printing and a print over a network, and that requires some use of proprietary and consent to their agreements. And the VNC server I've done is also insecure, where someone can try to browse your computer, even if you have a password set. Someone can brute force their way into your computer through VNC, even though you did not give the password out. They can somehow still see the password some kind of way over the internet and still get in.
I'll be right back. Don't
I
hijack
had
my.
that happen.
Just
Yeah.
I
kidding.
have a question for you,
I'll be right
Switch.
back.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is your what products do you don't use day to day?
What do you mean? What do you mean by what products do I not use?
Like, do you not use any kind of proprietary products like TeamViewer or anything that has a license agreement attached to it?
No, I'm not an anti-proprietary guy, actually. If I were anti-proprietary, I certainly wouldn't use Linux Mint. You
I
know?
wasn't trying to criticize your channel, Switch. I was just trying to say that you're more about privacy, which you're
Yeah,
about that, which I
again,
support for.
it's about making the right decisions. So, for example, I mean, I run a couple businesses, so obviously I have Google accounts logged into businesses. I have to manage analytics for a lot of different clients. I have some Google ad campaigns going, Amazon ad campaigns going, certainly companies that I would rail against a lot. But the difference is I don't use any of those types of systems for any personal things. So I have never put a personal photo in Google Photos. I don't use a Gmail address. I don't attach anything to any of those types of companies. So all my email is hosted on my own private servers. I have my own cloud infrastructure on my own private servers, all that kind of stuff. So
Way
no,
to go, Switch.
yeah. So I don't use TeamViewer. I do use Skype because that's unfortunately where all my clients are. So I have to use Skype up every day, which is an unfortunate thing. And as long as this Windows 7 computer keeps chugging along, I'm going to keep developing on it. But as soon as it dies, there's actually a Linux Mint computer ready to take its place.
Honest with you, Switch. I rather use my personal account for non-business stuff because I'm not a businessman and I can't do anything business-wise. So, having that said, it makes more sense for me to use my personal account for things that are not business-related. But I have a separate account if I was doing business stuff. But, however, I was scratching at my head to Windows 7 users. What would y'all do in 2020 when updates stop getting sent out to Windows 7? What would y'all do then?
Well, this computer is going to keep going until until it dies. I don't care what the year is, because this thing is so firewalled that the probability of getting some vulnerability hitting it is fairly small. I'm fairly confident in my ability to manage that. So, but that being said, this computer, I purchased it as a floor model in 2010, so it can't be around much longer, So when I need to do something on Windows with a client, I use a VirtualBox. I have a Windows 10 on a VirtualBox on 2 separate computers, so I can boot into a Windows environment should I need to. But fortunately, I don't on a regular basis need to do that. So, I just use as much open source software as I can. I use my own, like I said, my own servers, my own cloud infrastructure, my own everything that I can. And then I use the proprietary things when I have to. So like right now I'm working on a website on WordPress on the Windows computer. So if I need to edit an image, I will be using Photoshop. But if I'm over here on the Linux computer, I'll be using GIMP. So
I wanted to point out. Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
I didn't mean to chime in on people. I'm just saying that the community is such as Total West and Switzerland and everyone else. I don't have a problem. I don't. I just somehow custom curate what I want to do. For example, like if I wanted to use virtual machines for messing with PC tech support scammers, I do that so I can see what they're going to do. Now, I would use a Linux machine with a Windows virtual machine on it to do the same thing back to them, to mess with scammers on that unrelated note. But I'm scratching my head at security in Linux and disagreements about people trying to secure their Linux systems or using rolling release distros that may break at any given notice.
Yeah, and that's why I use Linux Mint, is because I hate rolling release. The thing is, like, I'm like right now on this video chat, I'm actually on my Arch computer, and if this rolls updates, whatever else, I don't really care, because actually this thing's getting calculated on it as soon as I get the spare day to do it, because this is a testing computer. So, but for main production, I always use Linux Mint because I don't want anything to change. If I need a security update, I'll get a security update. But I'm going to I don't want a new version of a software package to show up on the computer unless I specifically want it. So like I had to update Audacity to the latest version because there's some plugins that I had to do for some work projects I was doing that I simply had to have Audacity, the latest version of Audacity, to get some plugins working. So I had to do that. I had to figure out a way to get that working on Linux Mint. So, fortunately, they have a repo for the 1604 base. So I have the latest version of Audacity. I have the latest version of Kdenlive. I have the latest version of LibreOffice and OBS through PPAs. But I don't want anything else to update because I don't have time to relearn new software when I just needed an update. And that's the problem I have with Arch, with Fedora, anything that rolls on its release, is you're going to give me the latest version of the software. And if you move things around, like Handbrake is an example. Handbrake on my Linux Mint computer is different than Handbrake on the Arch because they updated the whole UI. They updated a lot of changes. There's a lot of things, and it functions differently. I don't necessarily have time to figure out how to rework all my software. That's why I don't use rolling release distros.
As like I was saying, this is what I had to do. I used Debian mainly just to try out things with, but I really didn't like. I tried Arch and I liked it, but my only problem I've made and mistake is setting the time and date on Arch incorrectly. I've done it to where I got it set at the wrong time, which can break the repository signature keys, which can cause problems, but I kind of forget how to do that. Since it's been a long time I did an Arch install, I always mess up the time and date setup, not anything else.
There is a command to do it in the terminal. Time date CTL. I believe it's. You could hit time date CTL, set time zone, and then and then you could change it, and that's how you change it in the command
My
line.
question, and my question for Switch is, what do you think about Windows setting the time of day automatically through a time server? Do you think that's a bad thing, or what is your response?
No, that's personal preference. I mean, Linux does the same thing.
I mean,
And
I don't know enough about what the differences are between the way they keep time or to make a comment on it. I'm fine with the way Linux does it, but I do
to
hear
be
that
honest with you, oh, whoops.
the one thing I do hear though is if you dual boot Windows and Linux, um, the way that they do keep time is fairly different, and they could conflict and screw each other up. I do hear that from people who dual boot. So I mean, there's
Yeah, but Windows by default uses GMT, and Linux by default uses UMT, or whatever the differences are. And
It
so,
uses UTC and GMT is in Windows. I've had this symptom where I do Windows 10 and Debian or
yeah,
another distro,
yeah,
and I get the problem where the time and date gets thrown off, causing some problems.
yeah, it should be like, depending on your time zone, 3 to 6 hour difference. So that's actually the fix. It's actually easier to fix it on the Linux line because Linux is so much more easily customizable. It's one configuration file in Linux will fix the whole issue. You just use the Linux to match the Windows build, the way it does it. It's one change, one line in a configuration file, reboot the computer, and it's back working again.
and I mean today I did something that I don't normally do, and I've been using i3 for like months now, and I've been loving it. It's stable, rock solid. But I got bored with it today, and I started logging into the different desktop environments that I have installed here, and messing with them, just because I was bored and I wanted to tinker. And I mean, there's some people who would disagree on that, like, oh, window managers are the way to go. Saying, oh, I need a full desktop environment. I mean, we just discussed one here. I mean, some people prefer stable release, and some people prefer the rolling. Like, Tom here likes for things to stay the same. For me, I've learned to appreciate the rolling release for certain reasons, and we disagree on that, and that's okay. And I mean, that just kind of disproves the whole echo chamber thing. I mean, like, we have plenty of disagreements within the Linux community itself.
My biggest thing I wanted to
Really,
point
man,
out
Benjamin, you should just absolutely stick with stable, man. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, what's wrong with you guys? Roll with the times. Come on.
I just wanted to lightly poke. I wanted to lightly put that Tom likes her stable releases. I've tried out Arch. I've tried out Debian Unstable for rolling. I know it's a bad idea to be using an unstable branch due to security and bug problems and issues that take a long time to fix. But if Arch is rolling and it's only the main rolling release, then why is Debian Unstable considered to be not suitable for everyday use, but Arch is suitable for everyday use, despite Arch is only one release?
Well, some people would make the argument that Arch isn't usable for everyday use, depending on your use case, I would say.
Yeah. Well, the real answer to that is that in Arch, well, both of those are definitely rolling. Arch is termed in the software world production, and Debian testing is not production.
Better yet, to put it lightly, this is I've ran Unstable before. I would see problems where app wants to self-destruct the system by removing the kernels and everything that's required for the system to function properly. Since apt in the Debian is so dumb that it wants to remove its own kernels when the system is running. I'm like, you can't remove the kernels when the system is running. Apt says it wants to, but I'm like, they should fix it where app can see it's running and won't remove anything that's actually in use. It won't remove the in use stuff, but it'll remove stuff that's not in use, which is a bad thing.
Well, I mean, in Arch, I get kernel updates pushed with the regular updates, right? Like when you run Pacman SYU, if there's a newer kernel, it's gonna update to it. And like the only time that I've had an issue with it, literally the only time I've had an issue with that was when I had a Broadcom chipset. And every time it would update the kernel, I would get a kernel panic on the next reboot because the developers of that particular driver didn't patch it in time for the new kernel. And so, like,
whoops.
like that's the only piece of hardware I've ever had an issue with. That being said, that's just one machine. That's just one example, and like kernel updates might not be suitable for every use case. Like, one thing I will say is that when you update the kernel, you don't have to reboot it. Like, it'll keep running, but certain things will not work until you do reboot it. So, for example, your virtual boxes will not run. I noticed that if I plug in a USB stick after a kernel update without rebooting it, it won't mount until I reboot the system. Then all of a sudden everything will work just fine. But those are just things to note that, like, if I'm certain machines that you install Linux to, maybe you can't reboot it every day. Maybe you can't reboot that every second. Maybe you just need it to sit there and work for a long time. And for that, a rolling release would not be suited.
I wanted to ask Switch a question about what gives with the video on EU's attack on custom ROMs. Can you elaborate a little bit?
The European Union in give me a minute. I copied a file on the wrong spot. I need to double check where I'm at real quick. Okay, so in 2014 there was a ruling about radio ROMs and things like that. And there's an update coming to that right now whereby there's a vote where they're trying to say that for safety and security of the world, what they want is that any device that is capable of sending or receiving radio transmissions has to run software that is certified by the manufacturer. And under that basic ruling, if software has to be certified and vetted by the manufacturers, there is zero motivation to certify open source software.
I have this phone right.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
Motorola phone. Yeah. What about it?
I have Android 8.0 or Android 8.0 Oreo on here.
Yep.
I like the phone, but I have the option to unlocking the bootloader on here, which Motorola does not condoning. They don't condone you, but they'll say you can do it, but you're on your own if you do. Don't sue us if something goes wrong in doing that. But I've flashed a phone with CyanogenMod on a Galaxy S3, and I liked it, but due to because my phone is my only lifeline to call people and text or do things on, I won't modify this because I risk damaging and I won't have a functioning phone. But, however, I just think that custom ROMs are okay, but they also let you break your carrier's rules about using your hotspot, like your phone as a hotspot for unlimited tethering data. I've tried it with CyanogenMod at one point, and I had limited data on my phone, and it was able to turn my phone into a hotspot unofficially through the custom ROM. But the consequence is using so much data through that ROM, enabling an unofficial hotspot, you'll get into trouble with your carrier.
Here in the United States, a carrier is mandated to allow you to use that hotspot. They're not supposed to lock it down.
But they only limit you to a certain amount of gigs. When you go over, they either slow you down in that matter.
Yeah, and it would be the exact same thing if you were to have a modded operating system. There's no change in that.
I like root. I like rooting Androids, but the problem is since I use Netflix, I can't use a rooted device because it won't install on a rooted device.
Yeah, and that's a major problem. That is a serious issue that Netflix needs to remedy.
They've been announced that whoops.
Yeah, what does it matter to them that my device is rooted or not? All of this is a way for the companies to control you.
Yeah.
I tried on a Galaxy S3 and it said cannot install this app. It said it on the Google Play, and it's been announced that root is blocked. Netflix blocked on rooted devices. Same thing with Samsung Pay, Google Pay, or LastPass for Android. It won't let you run. It'll say you can run on a rooted device, but it'll say your device's security has been weakened. Even a Motorola phone, unlocking the bootloader on here will display a warning screen when you run the OEM unlock on the device. It'll say, "Warning, your device."
Every time you unlock the bootloader, you're going to get a security notice. It's because an unlocked bootloader will allow extra software to run. So unlocking the bootloader is different than rooting it. When you root it, you are actually providing applications on the phone to have sudo access to the phone. I would never advise somebody root a phone. That's why I like Lineage, because I can modify some of the files as root, but the phone itself is not rooted, because I can root through an ADB bridge. In other words, through an ADB bridge connected to a trusted computer with the proper keys, I can make the system modifications, but nothing else can make those modifications. That's why I run Lineage.
The problem with me switch is you're lucky to get it. You're lucky to do that. My phones have been official. They've never been custom or anything, custom manufactured. They've been official. So I'm unable to do Lineage on this Motorola phone because it's by Motorola, and they will not be happy if I unlock the bootloader or change anything on it. So I'm leaving the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm stuck using official software.
There's no luck about it. I wanted to run Lineage, and I went about looking at which phone would run it, and I went out and bought one used.
I love Cyanogen Mod. I liked it before it got shut down, and I liked how I can root it and have it to where I can use it custom controlled. But I know you're against root a little bit, Switch. But if having root on Linux is there, then why Android shouldn't have it?
Why Android shouldn't have what?
Like Android having root ability to gain root access to the phone.
Well, I mean, first, Lineage is the continuation of Cyanogen. So if you're talking about Cyanogen, Lineage is the current version of Cyanogen. That's they went over and moved into that. So
my device is unsupported. It's not Linux compatible in my devices I have currently. My Android phone and tablet, which is the Galaxy Tab A Motorola phone, Lineage is not even available for none of them.
Yep, correct. And that's why when I knew I wanted to run a custom device, before my phone died, I was like, hey, phones don't last forever. So I did the research. I went out and I shopped around and I found a used version of the Nexus 5X, because the Nexus 5X supported, at the time I bought it, supported more custom ROMs than any other phone. That's exactly why I bought it. And then knowing what I wanted, I kept my feelers out looking for a good deal on it, and I was able to get one of those for just a couple bucks.
Yeah. I got this phone right here, the Samsung Android. It's using Android
from AT&T, right? It looks like it's from AT&T.
Yep, it's used. Yep. My family member gave it to me.
Completely locked. AT&T completely locks their phones. So you can't never buy an AT&T phone if you want to root it or unlock it.
Yeah, I got this one. It's an older 2011 phone. My aunt had this one, but she cracked it, but it works. It just uses a little alarm clock. I mean, I understand your point, Switch, to get a used device that's not locked to any carrier. My carrier I'm using, which is Metro by T-Mobile, they let you do a SIM card unlock, but they really don't lock their phones down unless you don't lock their phones. Like they lock their carrier in the phone, but itself the phone isn't really like hard locked. You can easily unlock it through the I'm forgetting. Hold on. Like it's already like manufacturer default, but the Samsung Galaxy phones they've got, they also can be modded. It's just I'm slightly against modding things slightly.
How you doing, Ricky?
Oh, I'm doing good. The SSD that I'm using right now, I picked out its OS for it. Solus 4.
Sweet.
And earlier today, I did my very first VirtualBox review. I reviewed Peppermint 8 because it was the very first distro I ever used full time.
Sweet.
Nice.
I'm stuck with this phone, so I have no choice but to use it the way it is. I have explored just using like an alarm clock, but since it's running Android 2.2, that's the only thing I can do. The Play Store will not work on this, nor YouTube or Gmail will run. but it has Facebook built into the ROM. It's not removable, so I'm having to use it like it is.
Well, Ricky, I started out the chat today talking about Linux, the Linux community in particular, and whether or not we're an echo chamber, right? Whether or not we agree on every little thing. As I
Yeah.
noticed somebody in the chats was criticizing that a bit.
I mean, the way I mean, I've only been in Linux for pretty much almost a year, so I don't know everything about the Linux community. But what I can say for sure is that I'm pretty much like right in the middle. I agree on some things, and I don't agree on some things. I
To
mean,
be honest,
I mean, until I've learned more from you guys about Linux and open source software, that's really all I can say.
to be honest, sorry to interrupt people or cut people off unexpectedly. Um, I'm not really against any Linux communities. I'm just upset that I missed a community I mentioned to Ben and Tom. Ricky, you should remember the Osgood Tech Show community and Linux community that prior to this one existed back in 2009, 2010, but it imploded after there were problems in the community.
I don't know much about it.
I'll tell you. Okay, on YouTube, a guy by the name of Tim, who did the Osgood Tech Show, would review Linux products like Linux software and Linux open source tools. He started on YouTube back in like 2008 and continued until 2011. The community, he was an Australian guy that did a lot of Linux stuff, and he had some problems where Jordan at 12 This Week in Linux also had some issues with him a little bit. They had a bit of a conflict between the two, and they both fell out, had a bit of a fallout, and the community for the Osgood Tech Show imploded after the fact that the host, people found out about the host's orientation on that side irrelevant note. That's when the community fell under. That's how the community fell apart. Not because of Linux, it was because of the host itself. Just saying how it fell apart, the truth. I didn't want to lie about how it fell apart.
Well, I mean that's the thing. I mean,
There we go. Just Photoshop again.
you know, what Tom was saying earlier, it's like we all have the one thing in common, that we all run Linux, or we're all at least interested in Linux, and like that's how a community is formed, is that we all have that common thing that brings us together. You know,
I mean, I just wanted to try Linux, of course. I don't have a problem using it, but I'm kind of stuck with Windows. As I've told Tom and Ben, that I have a printer that's HP that does work in both. But the problem is I have PC games that are proprietary. I can't delete them because I paid for them on my online accounts, so I can't delete them. They're stuck.
yeah. I mean that's a valid reason to run Windows. In my opinion, but there are people out there who, I mean, I guess they'll run, you know, just Windows, and they think Windows is better than Linux, and like those people, I don't think that we've ever denied them a seat at the table or denied them, you know, access to the chats, at least the open chats, you know.
I think, in my opinion, when it comes to people's different viewpoints, ideas, and all that about Linux, when it comes to open chats or any conversation in general, when it comes to Linux that's being done in a hangout, I see, in my opinion, anybody has a right to come in. I have no problems with that at all.
And like, and like, I mean, with Toss, I mean, he says multiple times in the open chats that, you know, if you use Windows, that's okay, right? How many people have heard him say that in the chats? You know,
I've heard him say that a few times.
Yeah,
I use Windows, and apparently I wanted to point out to Tom and others that I really, due to because of proprietary software that my games use in DRM, I cannot modify them. I know I cannot because it's against the end-user license agreement. And two, they have DRM that won't work in Linux. Most of my games are DRM Windows proprietary because The DRM in the games only need Windows. They use Windows stuff. In Windows, they run in a Windows environment. Linux, it will not work because it looks for specific stuff like DirectX or things that are proprietary. It won't look for open source stuff because of the way they created to run off the proprietary components.
I mean, for me, it's like I didn't start really gaming until after I started using Linux, and for me, there's more than enough available for it to keep me busy.
Mm-hmm.
But like that's
I can
just me.
use I
I mean,
can use Steam in Linux, but there's just one problem with that. The Windows games on my Steam library are broken in Linux. They work well in Windows, but they're a lot broken under Linux.
they are working on remedying that with the Proton player and whatnot. But I mean, that's the thing is that like that's okay to run Windows. That's okay to run it for certain things. I mean, it's even okay to run it as your desktop operating system. Well, like I mean, it's like that's the thing is that we invite Windows users to the table to specifically because like those are the people that we're trying to reach, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like so, of course, we're not going to deny we're not we welcome them, and like I do think that like most of our channels we do try to have like an inviting atmosphere for them as opposed to some of the Linux forums where people can be downright, rude, open mouth insert foot, you know.
I will say one thing when it comes to Linux, and this is the one thing I agree with Tom on. When you want a really good community for Linux advice and stuff, you need to be in the Ubuntu/Debian family.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard from a few people a lot of not so good things happening in the Arch community.
I mean,
it's a great place to find info, but just don't interact with them.
Mm-hmm. Or else you'll pretty much hear RTFM.
Oh, I've heard that term before, and apparently, Spatcher uses read the full manual. I know the other explicit term I won't say on the stream, I will not. But, however, I just wanted to point out that I've also put my own foot in my own mouth of me saying I use Windows and then saying I'm back between Linux and Windows. But to put it clearly, I just end up putting my own foot in my own mouth by saying two different things and saying which one I actually use and don't use. So I do apologize if I do that.
Well, I don't. Well, that's not putting your foot in your mouth. I mean, my definition of open mouth insert foot is, for example, on the Arch community, when they say like, "Oh, you're on Ubuntu, well, you should go on Arch because Ubuntu is for noobs," and then the person goes on Arch, installs it, and asks a simple question in the forum, and they get RTFM, go back to Ubuntu, you noob.
Or some other people will say, "You use Linux the Arch way."
Yeah, and like
I'll just say this: Arch did give me a really good experience when it comes to learning Linux under the hood and some advanced techniques. I will give the Arch community a lot of respect for that. I had a really good learning experience from that. But when it comes to Linux, I mean, just like Tom here, I came from Windows. I need that Windows environment to be efficient in my work. That's where pretty much Windows-like interfaces, like with Ubuntu, Debian, and Solus come in, because I can be efficient at those. Now, contraire, my main YouTube production computer has a Mac-like interface on it. I can actually adapt to a Mac interface no problem, because I've seen how the Mac works.
Steve says, I don't think that was the point of the question on Toss's stream. It was the fact that all on the panel were fully agreeing, say, with Toss's view on the national desktop.
Yeah, I will say about the National Linux Desktop. I say, out of all the distros we have, I mean, Canonical and Ubuntu have the highest chance of doing it.
I disagree. I think it's Mint. Mint is far more compatible, far better off too. It works with a lot more hardware, and it's a much more familiar interface for the majority of people who are looking to switch.
Exactly. I can agree with that, Tom. I agree, and also say for someone that comes to Mint that's not familiar with the Windows interface, they can pretty much customize the interface however they want.
What I
Yeah.
wanted to chime in here really quickly is okay. As I've mentioned, let me think. Remember what I said, Tom, before Ricky came in about unlocking, like modifying your phone?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to point out that my Motorola phone it communicates to a charger called a quick charger, so it tells it that it's a turbo power and it charges my phone rapidly. Me changing the software of my phone could cause damage to it, like that.
See, I mean, and this is the thing. I'm okay with taking trade-offs. I don't need something like that. I can plug my phone in the wall. You know,
Yeah.
what I do and the way I live my life, I am very confident in my ability to do what I need to do, accomplish what I need to accomplish without giving all of this data off to all of the other people's trying to suck it up. I'm willing to take a little bit of inconvenience for that. Like I mean, I charge my phone every other day. It's not really a hassle to plug it in.
I mean, I will say one thing, Tom, and this is a huge fact. I mean, and basically from me to you, I say this: there is too many corporate companies and those fat cats trying to steal our data, and there's too much AI technology. Companies need to calm down.
Yeah.
Well, I would say there's not so much that all of us on the panel agreed that Ubuntu would be the best desktop.
I mean, I will
I
say,
mean,
I mean, any Linux distro can do it, but
I mean,
I say when it comes to hardware compatibility, Linux Mint is pretty much
yeah.
our only option because, I mean, look at all the new hardware that Linux Mint gets compatible with every time a new kernel comes out.
I mean, we all have our opinions, right? Spatry likes Manjaro. I like Arch-based distros. That's my preference.
I mean, here's the thing. I like Manjaro too,
I
but
mean,
the biggest problem about Manjaro is that it crashes.
yeah. I mean, what I think that most of us did on that panel was we all put our preferences aside and got behind Ubuntu because we said, you know what? Any Linux distro is better than none. So it's like, all the people in like the primaries of an election. You all have your favorite candidate during the primaries, but when it comes time for the general election, people usually get behind the candidate of their party, right? No matter who it was.
Yeah, that's how it
And
works.
it's like that was my view. Like I have my personal preference of my personal favorite distributions, my personal preferred distributions, but I said, if Canonical can do it with Ubuntu, you know what? I'll get behind that and put and
I mean, all I gotta say, Benjamin, is I mean, as much as we want a national Linux desktop, it ain't going to happen for at least another few years.
yeah, and I mean
that note, whoops.
I mean, it's the ultimate desire for any Linux user. It's the one thing we're all working for as a community for it to happen. But here's the thing: as long as we have these corporate fat cats in their companies, it ain't going to happen. I mean, we literally live in a corporatocracy.
Oh, on that note, anyway, Switch, as I mentioned, you're about taking more benefits than the trade-offs. Or remind me again, because I want to also point something out here that I like how I can charge my phone quickly under 2 hours, but any other phone I would have been a little bit more in a hurry trying to get it to finish charging rather than trying to grab it and rush out the door quickly.
Well, here's the thing. Here's a thing, William. When it comes to phones, it depends on who manufactures the battery, and it depends on how the battery is constructed. I mean, battery technology, and I agree with Toss on this. Battery technology has not improved in over 20 years. It never has, and probably won't.
I've had a laptop
limited by the chemistry at this point.
It would be nice. It would be nice for a new batch of chemicals to be developed to make a better battery. But I mean, that's like millions of dollars just being spent to just whip up all those chemicals just so we could have that one little thing. I mean, all those poor scientists who are trying to design things to help us, I mean, they can't literally do that.
Well, I mean,
On that note,
and I would say too, like that one phone that Energizer made, and with the long battery life, it seems like the only thing they did was enlarge the battery.
Exactly. I mean, now I will say one thing: that Energizer phone.
All right,
that's
Steve.
coming-
Have a good night, Steve.
Goodbye, Steve. See you later, buddy.
Bye, Steve.
As I was saying, I will say when it comes to battery technology, the one company, Energizer, they are literally making a monumental breakthrough. They are releasing in a good couple months the Energizer phone, which has a huge battery on it.
Imagine the fire that thing will cause when it blows up.
One problem though, the trade-off is that it's not waterproof due to that, and second,
no, it's not. But I mean,
well, I tell you what, I'll order the Energizer phone with the big battery. Fire coming to Ben's stream soon. Fire, fire.
And this right here,
hey. As soon as the fire happens, get your s'mores and your marshmallows ready. It's gonna be a long night.
I just wanted to point out that I really don't like the design of the Energizer phone because it's big and thick like a brick. But the thing is, I want to point out here is
the way go on, William.
What I wanted to say to y'all is that this phone was designed by Motorola to handle fast charging. It's done well with it. I've never had a problem with it. It works completely perfect.
Okay.
It does, though, decrease the life of the battery, though.
It does. It really
does.
Yeah. Anytime you rapidly charge a battery, then it decreases the life of it.
Well, here, I will say that, like, when it comes to forums and stuff, I've had pretty good luck with Manjaro's forums.
Yeah, Manjaro. I would say the three best forums you can go to is the Manjaro, Debian, and Ubuntu forums because they're awesome. The Peppermint forums are amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, and I wanted to point into Switch that Motorola only recommends using their charger with their phones, not any other chargers not recommended.
Everybody says that.
I mean, here's the thing.
As long as it's power, as long as you have the correct amount. Now, what they're trying to do is they don't want you to go to the gas station and buy a $3 power charger from the gas station because those don't actually push the power they claim to. So as long as you have a good premium cable that pushes the power that it claims to be pushing, then you're fine.
I mean, the thing is with most phones, if they have like the standard Android cable and not the USB Type-C, I mean, any Android cable will charge a phone that has an Android cable as a charger. It doesn't matter it doesn't matter what it is.
Tom, my biggest question for you is, do you ever, okay, so you're the person that charges a phone, but not having to fast charge it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wanted to also put out there that most manufacturers want their phones to give you a fast charge, so if you're in a hurry, just plug your phone in for a little bit and just take it on the go. Not to worry.
The manufacturers want you to fast charge it because it wears out the battery faster and causes you to replace the battery sooner.
Okay.
It is an actual chemical reaction. When you are charging the phone rapidly, you're pushing massive amounts of power and you're causing degradation because you're causing more gas release from the battery. So you never want to rapid charge your phone unless you absolutely have to. There's places you might need to.
Now
I have to in this case. Oh, sorry. I have to if I'm needing it to watch a video for longer, but my charger slows down when it's nearing full.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It has a smart sense where if it gets near 90%, it slows it down heavily. But when it's fully drained, it rapidly does it. But when it hits 90 or 99%, it automatically throttles it back to increase its life.
Okay.
That's designed intentionally to prevent damage. When it hits the 90% or close to 99, it just it slows it down.
Mhm.
It slowly finishes it
That's a
off. Then you're
different
done.
thing that I'm talking about with degradation.
Oh,
Well, here I'm
what?
probably gonna kill the stream at 11 or so.
That's
Because I'm
fine. No problem.
getting kind of tired here. But like, yeah, um, I don't
You
know.
know,
Like,
you know, I think I know what I'm going to test in that virtual box next. I mean, I may be crazy, but I'm thinking I'm going to test OS2 next.
No, why?
I love old school operating systems. I like DOS. I like OS2. I mean, I like all of them.
Go ahead and just review DOS 5.0.
DOS 5.0?
I got a website
Sure.
where you can get them.
Try reviewing Amiga, the Amiga Forever software by Cloanto. They offer it where you can like do a trial version, but you have to buy the full version. But there's Amiga OS.
That's a thought, but the thing is, the reason why I have my eye set on OS2 is because it's one of the only operating systems that I never got a chance to look at. I mean, I've been in Windows, I've been in Linux, I've been in BSD, but I've never had an opportunity to see what IBM did back in its heyday when they were actually doing the right thing, and that's making computers, pushing forward innovation, and making a good operating system.
Well, I don't know if you saw that in the Hangouts chat. I shared a link with you, Ricky. And
my biggest question for Switch is, or actually for Ricky is, okay, you want to try the older systems. I've tried Windows 95, 98, and Millennium Edition, but I've also tried MS-DOS through
Yeah.
FreeDOS, but I would pull my hair out dealing with OS2.
Oh, there's a whole... Oh, I have so many toys to play with.
you found a gold mine, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Follow the yellow brick road.
Yes, yes. From that website, I could tell you I've tried MS-DOS 6.22
Let's see.
and AT&T Unix, and they
Let's
both
see.
work fine in VirtualBox.
There's Mac OS 9, Windows 98 Special Edition. I will say one thing: if there, besides XP and 7, if there was one other version of Windows that really excelled, it's Windows 98 Special Edition, Second Edition. Sorry, because Windows 98, there's just something about it that keeps bringing me back to it, and that's because it's so compatible with so many games from between 1998 and 1991.
You mean Doom?
Yeah, Doom.
I'm more interested in trying out Mac OS X or Mac OS, the older version, to try out the speech to text to speech voice, like the older cyber voices.
Well, the link that I shared in the Hangouts, it specifically deals with, I think, abandonware.
Yeah, basically. Ooh, nice. A lot of Unix and... Oh my gosh, is that Ubuntu right there? Oh, what's in there? What's in there? Ubuntu 4.4. Oh, it's a beta. 9/15/2004. Oh, I gotta see that.
Where would I find it in the site?
So, how you been doing, Tom?
Oh, just getting some work done.
Oh, that's nice.
Well,
question.
What I'll say is this, Ricky. We could probably chat more about this on MeWe, but like when you get these images, make sure you load them in the VirtualBox as floppy disks.
I will remember that. Thank you.
And
Whoop.
And the only thing about Solus that I don't like is I tried to do the little modification in the terminal to where I can get 256 megabytes of RAM. It, for some reason, Solus will not allow me to do it with VirtualBox. I don't know why.
To do for VRAM?
Yeah, Solus will not allow me to do it.
I have a question for Switch.
Should work fine. I ran mine in 256.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I have to be in a certain folder to do it. I mean, what I did, Tom, was I opened up the terminal while VirtualBox was on the display setting, and I did VBox manage modify VRAM peppermint -- VRAM 256. I entered that. It says command not found.
Just double check your syntax.
My question
where can I find the syntax?
Just look up online what it's supposed to be.
Okay.
Oh, here's something I've also learned for VirtualBox users. VirtualBox changed their VirtualBox extensions guest pack to where it's no longer an executable file. You have to run it through command prompt in Windows through a command. I found out the hard way because older versions of VirtualBox use it to where you double-click the little VBox ext pack file and it will open up VirtualBox to install it. But now they changed the file extension to a tar.gz that requires a command prompt in Windows to install it. No longer is a double-clickable file anymore.
Okay, what do we got here?
You just need to go into the properties. I think it's like file properties. Let's see. Do I have a computer on? I think I have a computer on with VirtualBox. Hold on.
But renaming it won't work though, Switch. I've tried.
No, you need to install it through the plugin manager on Virtual Machine.
I tried it on the plugin manager and it wouldn't recognize the file. It just wouldn't.
Is it possible it needs unzipped first? Because GZ is a zip file.
No, it does not. It's not unzippable. Period.
Did you verify the? Did you verify the checksum of the file? Make sure it downloaded right.
It downloaded correctly.
Yeah, Ubuntu 12.04.
And what did you use to unzip it?
I couldn't. It wouldn't. It was not unzippable. I tried and it gave me an error, so I googled it.
What were you trying to use to unzip it?
I was using 7-zip because I prefer open source 7-zip.
Yeah, that should manage a GZ, so I think it should manage
I tried 7-zip and it said error that it's not a valid format. So come to find out, you have to Google, like you have to use a command prompt and you have to type in a certain command that I Googled it and gave me to a VirtualBox forum and it showed me how to do it. So you got to run a command in order to install it from command prompt only. That's how they changed it.
Well, we can chat more after I kill the stream, but for the people in the chat there, I know we kind of got derailed on the topics here, but I hope that we proved that we're not all in an echo chamber and we're not,
No, I don't think
we're not these closed-minded people that was suggested. We do prefer Linux. That seems to be a trend in the Linux community, but we're far from an echo chamber, and I hope that we proved that tonight. I'm gonna kill the stream in like 5 minutes here at 11. We'll stick around in the Hangouts if people still want to, but
yeah. My question for Tom is, what do you think about MeWe? I like it.
I don't like social media at all, so I use it to the extent that I need to, just to remind people what's going on, but that's about it.
Ben, did you find my MeWe profile?
I am on MeWe. Let me see.
Okay, let me.
Should be able to check my contact list.
I pretty much have 2 web browsers on. I'm pretty much using the text-based links web browser, and I got Chrome on. Okay, www. What was that again? Old releases. ubuntu.com/releases. Okay, maybe it'll take me
I
to
just
it.
wanted to talk to Ben about MeWe because I love it, and I've found Total Us today, Ricky, and a few others on it. I love it better than Google Plus.
Yes, I am on MeWe.
Well, the thing is, I mean, even though I like MeWe, the one thing I have to remember is I don't want to become addicted to social media. I like trying to keep things, ethical. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I know
Not
what you
quite.
mean. I found you through Carmine, William.
Okay. I just want. Okay, I do get what you mean, but I'm having to figure out. I just wanted to try it out because Google Plus. I'm glad it's going away for good. I didn't like it too much.
I
Well,
didn't use it
well,
enough to have an opinion.
well, I don't think it's going away permanently. It's going to be around in some other form.
Well, here, I'll say goodnight to the chat here. Good night, guys.
All
I'm just going to end the
Everyone,
stream
See you
here.
later. See you later, guys.
All right, bye-bye.
Quack.
What do you know? It's duck season.
No, ducks don't echo.
Crickets, crickets.
No, ducks don't echo. If we're talking about being in an echo chamber and that we're not an echo chamber, we have to quack. Ducks quack does not echo.
Quack, quack.